Tēnā koutou e hui mai nei I tā tātou kaupapa nui whakaharahara. Mei kore aki koutou e pēnei nei te kaupapa. Nō reira, tēnā tātou katoa. Kei Waka Kotahi au e mahi ana, e tautoko ana tāku mahi ki ngā kaunihira I te Waipounamu, ko Rowland tōku ingoa. Nōku te honore ki te kōrero au ki mua I tēnei rā. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So I just wanted to acknowledge everyone for coming here today, the organisers, the speakers before me and after me, because without you all here, this event wouldn't be what it is. So I work at Waka Kotahi, and my name is Rowland. I've already been introduced, but my job at Waka Kotahi is to support councils across the South Island. So I've been asked here to talk about a project in the North Island, which makes perfect sense. But I'm here on behalf of my colleague Errol Ritson, who is a senior safety engineer up in the Wellington office, and he was overseeing this project on State Highway 2 from Featherston to Masterton. And so I hope that I can do him justice and share his passion through my kōrero today. And so I'm going to be talking to you about Road to Zero, safe system principles and how we apply that through the Road to Zero program. Then, of course, that project that won the Golden Foot Award last year. So, I want you to come with me on a journey. Imagine an Aotearoa New Zealand where everyone can get where they're going safely, where it's safe to ride your bike or send your tamariki to walk to school, where transport improves our health and well-being, creating livable places for our communities, and this is our vision for Aotearoa New Zealand. Now, we're not there yet, but we do have a plan, and it's called Road to Zero. But as we've heard already over yesterday and today, we've actually got a few plans and a few things kicking around that will help make places more livable and safer for our communities. So Road to Zero adopts a world-leading approach to road safety that says it's possible to have no loss of life or serious injury on our roads, streets and footpaths. It sets a target of reducing transport-associated deaths and serious injuries by 40% by the year 2030. But to get there, we need your help. Waka Kotahi, media, councils, community groups, road designers, policymakers, insurers, regulators, police, whānau, parents, students, teachers, and all of us have a part to play in getting us there safely. We have a shared responsibility for keeping people safe on our roads, our streets, and our footpaths. It's all important that we all follow the rules of the road to make safe choices when we're travelling, but we all know people make mistakes. So when they make a mistake, the system shouldn't fail them. So we can prevent people being killed or seriously injured in these crashes by building a safe transport system that protects people at every turn. As humans, we are vulnerable to crashes, so we need everyone making safe choices in safe vehicles, on safe streets, and travelling at safe speeds. That's because it takes everyone to get to no one. Mā tātou e kore te tahi e hinga. So, that's the Road to Zero spiel. Safe system principles. To make New Zealand roads and streets safe for everyone, we are guided by these principles. Now, a move to safe system, the safe system way of thinking requires a bit of a mindset change from our historical, outdated views of road safety. Historically, cause was sought in the actions of the victims or the drivers, and sadly, this is still very common in media and society when talking about road safety currently. But under a safe system way of thinking, we look at what system features or failures led to the crash outcome. Importance there. We are moving from targeting a reduction in the number of crashes to focusing on preventing and reducing the trauma that results from those crashes. Now, underpinning these 4 safe system principles is an ethical starting point. And that is no one deserves to die or be seriously injured when moving about Aotearoa New Zealand. A human is unique. It cannot be substituted or traded with money. So, looking at those top 2 principles up there, The first one, we promote good choices, but plan for mistakes. In any situation, someone can make a mistake, but the system should not fail them. Recent New Zealand research found that 70% of serious injury crashes and 50% of fatal crashes, drivers had generally been following the road rules. And when you consider that on average, 1 person is killed and 7 people are seriously injured in a life-changing way every single day in our transport system, that's a lot of people that weren't doing anything wrong that have been harmed. Now, the second principle up there is we design for human vulnerability. I've already said there is a limit to the force or the energy that our human body can tolerate before it starts to be seriously injured or worse, killed. As an example, for a vehicle versus pedestrian crash, research indicates that the safe and appropriate speed limit is around 30 kilometres per hour. This gives the pedestrian about a 90% chance of surviving with only a minor injury, or better yet, walking away. Now, the bottom 2 principles down there are focused on managing the system. We strengthen all parts of the road transport system. This means safer roads, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and safer people. And this links back to planning for mistakes. I've lost where I was going, so we'll go to the 4th principle, and that is we have a shared responsibility. Now, this is something that we hear a lot about, but the thing with this is I want to impart with you, it's not shared equally. We've already heard today and yesterday around the need to be advocating of our political representatives to be getting change across the line for our communities. It is the system designers, like our politicians, that make decisions around where funding is spent, like us as engineers that make decisions on what design features are put in, that create the system that the end users are then operating within. So if we haven't created the safe system, how can we expect the users to survive? So this approach acknowledges that people make mistakes, and we as system designers can help create a forgiving road transport system by applying these safe system principles in our decision making. So coming to the key point of our talk today, or my talk today, is raise mid-block pedestrian crossings. But first, to design our transport system to achieve a safe system, our treatments need to use an integrated process of both speed and infrastructure. Now, safe system infrastructure can be split into 2 different bits, primary treatments and supporting treatments. Now, primary treatments virtually eliminate the potential for fatal and serious injuries to occur by reducing crash severity and exposure, or a combination of reduced severity and likelihood. Examples of primary treatments you might be thinking, well, they're median barriers, roundabouts, or raised pedestrian crossings. Now, supporting treatments are useful as well, and they improve the overall level of safety, but are not expected to eliminate the potential for fatal and serious injuries. Examples of this might be wide centre lines down a corridor, or putting roadside barrier at high-risk locations where there's hazards. Now, raised safety platforms are a key measure under our Road to Zero strategy to improve the safety of our roads for people outside of motor vehicles. It's important to note that raised safety platforms are not the same as speed bumps that you might find in your supermarket or mall car park. They are specifically engineered to make it physically uncomfortable to drive over the platform faster than the advisory speed. And that is set based on the type of conflict that you are trying to manage the energies down to a survivable limit, be it vehicle versus pedestrian, vehicle on vehicle. Now, altering the approach ramp and the height of that ramp give us what is the advisory speed that you want people to be driving over it. So you can design these, as I said, for people on vehicle type conflicts that occur, and we want to be making sure that vehicles cannot be travelling over them or feel uncomfortable driving over them in excess of 30 kilometres an hour to manage that energy. So let's look at some features of a raised safety platform. You'll see most of the things I'm about to talk about up in the picture there, and you can read 7 times faster than I can talk, so I've just filled that space so you can read all of those little bullet points. And now I'm going to talk through them. So here's a photo from Google Maps of the raised pedestrian crossing recently built in Carterton outside Southend Kindergarten, and you can actually see someone pushing a pram with some young kids to go to kindy. The design of pedestrian crossings is much, much safer for people crossing the road, but they have to be detailed with people using the road in mind as well, and that includes cyclists. So here they've been very mindful of outlining a space for cyclists at that pinch point across the raised pedestrian crossing, because that is another conflict that we introduce by doing these sorts of treatments, which we need to be mindful of. But keeping in mind the motorists that are using this, we've got advanced warning signs that tell them you should only drive over this at 25 kilometres an hour unless you want a sore bum. We've also got good LED lights so that this is very visible in the night time, as there are people that use crossings at night, funnily enough. The stopping line and shark's teeth also help to increase the visibility of this, which is important for our drivers. It's important that we consider the people crossing the crossing as well. That's the primary purpose of this one. Because it's raised, it's level with the footpath on either side. So when you are entering this crossing, you do not have to dip down, which is much easier if you're pushing a pram or you're on a mobility scooter or in a wheelchair. Now, the curb build-outs are important in limiting parking on the approaches to this, so that users of this crossing, be they on the road or the footpath, can have visibility of the other users, and so they know if it's safe to cross or if they need to stop if they're a motorist. It all makes sense, doesn't it? It's not rocket science. Anyway, moving on to the actual project. State Highway 2 Masterton to Featherston, something I know absolutely nothing about. But thankfully Errol briefed me thoroughly, and so I can talk with confidence, and where I don't know the answer, I will make it up. So don't quote me. So here we are. This section of State Highway 2 connects the Wairarapa to Wellington and the central and eastern North Island. It's important for locals, economic development and tourism. I've heard there are some nice vineyards over there I would like to visit. But the volume of traffic, some intersections, speed and roadside hazards like poles or ditches have made it a bit of a high-risk road. Between 2010 and 2019, there were 488 crashes. Sadly, 4 people were killed and 28 were seriously injured. Now, 3 separate projects, but they're all complementary, are happening on this section of State Highway. The first is a speed review, and that was rolled out in January of this year. We started consultation back in 2021. We've lowered the speeds around schools with variable speed limits during pick-up and drop-off times to 30 kilometres an hour. In the centre of the townships, they've been reduced to 40 kilometres an hour. We've managed the extent of some of the existing speed limits to recognise the growth and urban development that's gone on there. And for the undivided rural sections of the state highway, we have lowered the speed limit to 80 kilometres an hour, which is also focused on that vulnerability and safe system threshold. We've also got roundabouts and barriers going in there. Up the top you will see with the orange box. The barriers will prevent, they are a primary treatment. They will virtually eliminate the potential for you to have a head-on collision with another vehicle coming the other way. Roundabouts provide you with safe intersection treatments and also allow you to turn around if your property is on the other side of the road. Now, most of this is in construction right now, but we will finish the majority of that by September, but the final resurfacing won't be able to happen until summer. So it's looking good for the summer construction season. But it is weather dependent, Errol wanted me to point out, so bear with. Right, so that's the project as a whole, but the key part and what we won the award for was actually around, and I'm going to say here, so this is what Errol is most proud of. And so when he talks about this project, so I sat down with an hour for him before pulling the slides together, is he really was most proud of the fact this was all about protecting vulnerable road users. So State Highway 2 in the Wairarapa, like many state highways in Aotearoa, causes significant severance to our communities and townships that are based along those corridors, especially as they continue to grow as people move out of cities and into a more rural lifestyle. The composition of the communities along this section of State Highway, there's a place called Greytown. I'm not sure that's related, but there's an elderly population that is quite notable there. There's also plenty of young families with young children moving out of Wellington and into this part of the world, because it is a lovely part of the world. And so you've got quite a mixed range of people that like to use the transport network there. And that severance issue stops them getting from places where they live to places where they learn, play, or want to be, or even need to be. So whilst this is a safety project under the Road to Zero program, Errol sees this as a project to help re-establish livable and vibrant towns and communities through providing safe and accessible transport options for all users. Now, through the work the team have done, we've identified 24 pedestrian crossings in the Wairarapa that require replacement and in some cases relocations. These are all planned to be upgraded to raised pedestrian crossings, which is quite a bit of mahi to do. So in 2021, 3 were constructed. There was 1 in Masterton, Carterton and Featherston, and that is the green tick icon you can see up there on the map. The red plus icon indicates the 5 crossings that are designed and almost ready for construction. Comms will be going out to the community shortly, and we hope to kick off in the summer construction season coming up. So looking forward to that. And now we've actually revised these latest designs, the next 5 we're about to build, considering the community feedback that came in after the first 3 were built. Feedback was around noise, public transport implications, car parking space, funnily enough, mobility impaired users, emergency services and heavy haulage users. Now the refined designs are in line with Waka Kotahi's standards regarding raised platforms, but they also address the feedback as much as practicable. As an example, the platforms have been lowered from the 100mm height that the first 3 were to 75mm height. The lighting has also been vastly improved on the new 5 that are coming up, and the pavement specification has also been changed to provide for additional strengthening and better resilience. Now looking further ahead, you will notice that there's a few other little purple icons up there, 16 in all. Now these have been included in our funding request for funding for the next funding round, 24 to 27. But whilst we wait to see if we're successful with that funding request, we have got design cracking on with 6 of them. So we can make an early start if we get that tick of approval, subject to funding, of course. 1 minute? All right, we won an award, it was really great. Earl's real happy about it. Thank you very much.